So welcome to today. I'm Christine.
I'm Liz.
And I'm Sarah.
And we are Double DFense. We're an all-female New York Rangers podcast, bringing you fun conversation about our New York Rangers, the NHL and hockey, and so much more. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, I don't know how we all want to start this off, but just to give you a little bank, for what might have in the future. It was Castleton, is it Castleton Corners Pub? We can fix the name. It was a bar on Staten Island that I had, for whatever reason, I saw they were following us. So that's why I texted you guys. I'm like, if I go to places by myself, but at least I know I'm going to end up with someone I know or see someone I know. This was a pure, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to go there with the intent to say hello and thank you, for following us. And hey, this is who we are. I get there. There's 4 guys at the end of the bar. The music is so loud. And I was just like, oh, and I sat down and got my beer. I talked to the bartender. She was really nice. I think her name was Mia. And so I kind of asked her, who does the social media? She's like, oh, that's the owner or the manager, Mike. And I'm like, Mike, yeah. Everyone I meet in New York is named Mike. I'm like, of course it's Mike. She's like, yeah, well, usually on Staten Island, it's like Johnny or Vinny, kind of a thing. And I'm laughing. And then I started to text you guys. And just as I'm doing that, which took all 5 minutes, she comes back. She goes, your next drink's on Johnny at the end of the bar. And I was like, oh, and he's waving. And I ended up 5 minutes later, just moving down there and just hanging out with all these older guys. One guy, I was like, oh, my wife's mad. I should be going home. And then he never left. And then the minute I said I was from Long Island, he started playing on the jukebox, every band that ever played at Nassau Coliseum that he saw when he was 12. So that was pretty funny. So the music got louder. Then we were doing shots. I mean, it was pretty funny. The best part was 2 of the guys were like, do you need a ride home? I was like, no, I don't. And one guy was like, are you sure? Are you sure you don't want me to take you home? And I was like, I am pretty sure I'm okay. And I was like, I don't think I've heard a line like that ever. I'm like, what is that? The pickup lines on Staten Island? I don't know. I would have gone back if my girlfriend had come because they were doing a costume party. Mia was great and she was fun. I got the phone number for the guy, the owner. I haven't had a chance to text me, and I will, just to say thank you. And and we'll have to make it there next time. The great thing is it's only 2 miles from the apartment I stay at. So that's a lot of fun. It was fun that somehow they found us and then we found them. And I will go back with reinforcements because I'm not working at that bar again by myself. I don't have
safety numbers. Absolutely.
I know. I mean, it's an easy drink, I was like, because I was the only girl in there, and I think they were like, whoa, like that one doesn't belong here. Where do you? So, because that was a very common question. What are you doing here?
So I think that word is starting to get out. Our podcast is starting to get a little bit of notice out in the world. We had the good fortune of being guests on the Mind Your Pucking Business podcast with Jeffrey and Dougie. So thank you so much to them for having us on, even if we did talk more about hockey and less about my love of Kreider's Zibanejad fan fiction. But that's fine. We will get to that on our podcast. Cool. Hockey's great. Well, except for the last couple of games here.
If you saw my message to them, I was like, I'm glad we met before those games.
Yeah. So, okay. So we're just coming off a 2-game streak loss.
But we had a 3-game streak win before that. And we were even in first place for a hot second. So
how are you feeling?
Enjoy.
How are you feeling about this, Christine? Is it time to hit the panic button yet, or too early in the season to say?
No, in fact, what I was saying, as I was saying before, for example, Kreider getting moved down. I saw that message last night at the play, getting moved down 4th line in the game. I think I said it before, what he was doing wasn't working for him. When are they going to change it up? We're still seeing, at least by that line, the same moves, and they're not working. So what do you do? And here's where the big conversation is whose fault is it? Is it the line? Is it Kreider? Is it Zibanejad? Kakko's doing well. Everyone's now praising him. Is it Gallant? Right now the boards are all over the place. Everybody needs to be traded. It's not the same team. We suck. I mean, everyone's losing their minds over what's happening right now. So I'm never going to hit a panic button. It's so early. Everything changes and teams are hot right now and teams make mistakes. I always say this too. We don't know what they're saying in the locker room. They know where their mistakes are made and they know more about their mistakes than we do because we don't see everything. We don't know if they're playing injured. We don't know if the time change had anything to do with it. It didn't. Here's the thing. I think what I'm seeing is they're all working individually, but they're not working together. That's what they got to do more of. And I think Gallant's going to, as I said, he's going to change stuff up and he's doing it. I think he should have done it a little bit earlier.
The frustrating thing with this team is that they clearly can do it. They have these bright spots that, like the first period of the game against the Red Wings the other night, that was a brilliantly played first period. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Everything looked like it was on point, and then they seem to fall apart. And I don't know what's happening during intermission, but there's something that's not being cohesive. And you're right, Christine, there's probably something going on. I'm sure there's something going on that we don't know about. How do they keep that momentum up? I think we saw a little bit of this last year, but what would happen last year is they would get into these situations and then find a way to win. And that's not happening this year. It's not working for Kreider. He's not making those connections that he used to. Igor is still, he's super strong. I think Halleck played a great game against the Red Wings. I don't think the goals, at least not that last one, was his fault. You could see how frustrated he was at the end of that game. There's something else happening, and I don't think it has anything to do with the skill of the players. I think there's something maybe a little bit psychological that's happening here that they really need to dive into.
And I agree with that too. I was watching a couple of games prior to these two where, I'm watching the stats. We're doing well. And like a couple of weeks ago against the Islanders, I was at that game and I was like, I don't even know what's happening. The Islanders were checking each other. I mean, like they were terrible and they still won. And I'll tell you something, like Halak is getting the losses, and it's unfortunate because he lost against the Islanders, but Igor had a worse game the week before and lost. So Halak actually did better than Igor that game. He took more shots, same amount of goals, but we didn't even score on like 30 something shots on goal. So was it his fault, or we couldn't even score? We were clearly the better team. We couldn't score. We have a problem with that. I think the shots are weak. I don't think our scoring opportunities are really good. They're passing too much, in my opinion. And the top lines are relying on their signature moves, Mika. So, and the fact that he can do it, it's beautiful when he does it. But as again, that hockey mom mode, I'm like, on regular 5-on-5 play, the defense is on them. Moves and plays aren't going to make themselves when someone's in your way. And that's kind of why the other guys are doing it. Now, I saw an article, or it was a meme, I think, with Gallant saying these vets have to be showing the young kids be better examples for them because they're now kind of holding up the line on things. Well, that's what happens. This is what I like too. We all score. We all have the ability to go and score. We're not going to be one of those teams that relies on, their top one or two players. We should, but we shouldn't at the same time. We need to be scoring from all angles, from defense, offense.
Upcoming, we are playing the Islanders tomorrow at 4. Then we have the Red Wings again on Thursday. That'll be an interesting little rematch to see exactly what happens and if any of these lessons were actually taken to heart. And then the Predators on the 12th. So do we have any drink pairings upcoming for Islanders, Red Wings, or Predators?
I have to look. I'll tell you what I'm drinking right now.
What are you drinking right now, Christine?
I'm drinking Angry Orchard apple pie in a can. When I was in New York, I went there and it's very sweet, like the guys on our team should be. Off the ice, not on the ice. On the ice, I want them to be all grr. So we need an angry drink. An angrier drink than Angry Orchard.
Sarah, what's in your glass? What are the Canadians drinking to ring in this hockey week?
Right now I have Snoop's California Red, which is like one of my favorites, but I can only usually have one. Can't explain it, but classic Snoop, only a little bit.
I'll be honest, not one of my favorite wines. I've had that one before.
I love it.
It's sweet.
Oh god.
It's a little bit sweeter than most California Reds.
I describe it as a dark and smoky, just like Snoop. But I'm thinking though, for Detroit, I want like a whiskey Caesar, which is like one of my favorite things. I don't know if Caesars are a big thing where you guys are.
No, but I love Caesars when I go to Canada. Caesars are
great,
but I've never.
I don't know about the whiskey part.
Yeah, talk about that.
So good.
Like
What's
shot?
a whiskey Caesar?
You can put any whiskey. I use Jameson's because it's got that nice smoked age to it. Throw that in, some Tabasco, a nice pickled bean. I like a nice Worcestershire, not your usual Liam Perrins. You can get a craft Worcestershire and some Clamato. Oh my God, it's like my favorite thing.
I think we need to do that for some of the upcoming West Coast games that are being played early. So it's like a brunch. So we're doing like a brunch drink. I love that.
Yeah, not the bean
that.
though. I don't get the bean thing. I've had that in Virginia City. It's weird, but I definitely am all about the olives and the pickles and the, and the Caesar. So
have you had the ones where they have like sliders or chicken wings on them? Like it's like a whole meal.
It's a whole meal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. In Michigan, that's my drink. Not only is it my drink in Michigan because they serve it with like olives and pickles. And so it is a little snack, but they're like $3.50. They're so cheap. Whenever I go to Michigan, like that's just, it's, I call my happy drink. It makes me so happy.
We'll have to come up with a couple of drink pairings, not just for next week, but the following week when the Rangers start their West Coast road trip, which as Southern Californians, we are extremely excited about. And I think there's more than a few games that you will see us at. We do encourage anybody who is planning on coming to the games who is in Southern California to please reach out on Instagram. We are planning on doing some meetups before the games at different places close to the stadiums. I think we're planning on being at the San Jose game up in San Jose on the 19th. Then we have the Kings game at, I want to call it Staples Center, but it's not. It's Crypto.com Arena now. We will all learn this.
In LA, yeah.
In LA on the
weird.
22nd, and they're playing the Anaheim Ducks on the 23rd, so leading into Thanksgiving. So please, please, please reach out if you're going to be in town, and we'll meet up at a bar and we'll all have our favorite drink pairings to go along this with these games.
Shots.
And hopefully, definitely, we'll have a good run on these games. Hopefully we'll get some good wins.
Yeah, I think these will all be good practice because then just a couple weeks after that, they will be in Vegas. And I think right now, Vegas is super hot, and we are looking at, they kind of really need to work their magic and to go up against that team. Actually, that'll be a good reset. That's a kind of a goal I'd like to see them, go for, because all the other teams are kind of, they're moving up and down. They're kind of in the middle of the pack. Anaheim, I think, is low, right? If they can get through there and make it through Vegas with a good game and a good win, even a point I'll take, as long as it's a good game. I think we'll be okay, because that really is going to kind of close us out of the year. And I'm sure there's a couple other games right now. Vegas is on the top, so that's a good goal to hit with a win. So let's see what becomes of now to then. I know we'll talk between then as well to see if we're going to be on track for that, and we'll see how that goes. So
absolutely. And the other thing we have to get on track on is Christine going to find a boyfriend this season?
I'm working on it.
This is part of the reason we started the podcast. Let's be honest. I heard the phrase in the last episode that Christine is the Bachelorette of Hockey. And I absolutely think we need to embrace this. If you have any single friends who are out there, all of our 14 listeners, please let us know. Let's fix Christine up. Christine, do you have a type? Doesn't matter. Yes, do you have a type like other than like Panarin? And Panarin, if you're listening, come meet Christine at the bar before the game.
he's a little young for me. So
it's LA. Anything can happen.
I know. I want to say, actually, I'm told I do have a type, but personality works for me the most. It's someone who's gonna make me laugh. And it's like one of the things where you know kind of a thing. But I typically I'm 6 feet tall, so I kind of like people around 6 feet tall and over 40, maybe. It would be nice. I do attract younger guys too, so they gotta be a little older. So, and apparently distance doesn't matter, because when I'm in New York, I meet wonderful, amazing people. If you're listening, you're all amazing, you're fabulous, and I do love you. I'm treated very well when I go to New York with friends and stuff, and it's nice. I'm very thankful of people I meet, and then every time I go, I'm meeting more. So I like watching those connections grow, because we never know where it's going to lead to.
Okay,
yeah, so I like a boyfriend myself.
So let's try to narrow this down a little bit. Out of the Rangers, let's do some comparisons. Hottest player, and you can't say Panarin because I know you want to.
Well, more of my type, I can tell you more of my type would be a Kreider guy. He's tall, dark, and handsome. But probably Lafreniere has the humor, the sense of humor, and the kind of the personality that I'd probably like the most. And Igor's got the smile. And Panarin has the
headband.
And the headbands. Yeah. And Panarin's got that smile, that he's got that youthful kind of smile. So put them all together, and that's my guy.
Sarah, how about you? You don't have to say a Ranger. It could be any hottest hockey player.
Oh, go ahead. So for who?
Don't say it.
You're thinking I'm going to say a Penguin. I'm not.
I know. Thank you.
No, because that's an off podcast conversation. I have my theories on a couple of them. No, actually, I was just thinking like tall hockey players over 40. Zdeno Chara just popped into my head. I mean, he's not a Ranger, but he was a great player.
He's really tall.
Really tall. Any interviews or anything I've seen of him on TV, he looks like down to earth and quiet, but like he also seems like he could be the life of the party if he really wanted to, which I feel would complement you very well. I really like too how you led with has to make you laugh. That is always my number one. Somebody has to make me laugh. Life is too short and miserable at times to not be laughing, right? So my favorite hockey player, I don't know, that's really hard. I've always been a huge fan of Jeremy Roenick, and I know he's old. He was just really funny. I've met him several times, and he's just like genuine and down to earth, and he can fight when he wants to, which I love. fighting part, like that part of hockey was like my favorite thing.
That bad boy I do like that.
Yes. Oh my God. I married a bad boy. I know.
That's the hot part. Like any bad boy. Whew. Yeah.
I know. And mine's reformed, but as the good ones should be.
That's the dream. That's every girl's dream.
I know, right?
Absolutely.
But like, that's my favorite type of hockey player. Like, you got to be edgy. You got to get in there. You got to stand up for what's right, but score some goals and make people laugh. Don't be a douche. That is like the biggest turnoff. What about you, Liz?
I got to be honest, he is not my favorite player, and we can get into that at a later date on a different episode. But I got to say, K'Andre Miller is beautiful. He is a beautiful human being, and I think he's good personality. He knows how to work it. I think he has some stuff he needs to work on, and I think he's been a little bit overrated. But if we're talking about sort of physical looks, I think he's super hot. Overall, I would say my favorite player right now is Ryan Reeves. He's so funny. He's a
motivator too.
Totally. And he might not be the strongest skater, and he's not going to be the biggest goal scorer, but there's something about him that I think is really keeping this team cohesively together, and I think that's super hot.
K'Andre likes to sit down, like when we go to the game, we'll watch. He comes out after practice and he just sits on the bench by himself and just contemplates the ice. But it's interesting to watch and wonder what goes through his mind. He did it pretty regularly when he was out here last time, so I'd be curious to see if I see him do it again when we're at the games here. He's got that nice little ritual that's, kind of it's spiritual, almost like to watch
peaceful
him, which makes it. And he's very good looking. So yes.
Which is the opposite of Ryan Reeves, who's screaming, Jesse, release us, and like punching everyone. Speaking of hot hockey players, there is something that I've been wanting to talk about on this podcast because I have become absolutely obsessed with it. There's a number of people who have been posting on Twitter, and also a website called Archive of Our Own, which is fan fiction. And if anybody doesn't know what fan fiction is, basically take characters that have either been in a favorite television show or book or movie, or in this case, hockey players, and people write full stories about the things that they're doing. Those things could be anything from adventures that they're doing to who they're sleeping with. And there is at least 3 amazing writers on Archive of Our Own who are doing the best Kreider Zibanejad fan fiction and have created a full narrative about these two having a secret relationship outside of the Rangers, or sometimes, while they're traveling. And it is so entertaining. They are so well written. And I am so hoping that the people who are behind the Twitter account that is the Zibanejad Manifesto are listening to this. And I really hope you're fans, because please know that you have fans right back here, and I am eagerly awaiting everything that you post.
We need to find them. We'll
absolutely.
Please find you.
Please reach out to us.
We need you.
Yeah, Zibanejad Manifesto. They even published a thread of 13 slides explaining the relationship, the origin of it, everything from them meeting to the iPad incident, which is from last season, which I know you all recall, when Micah was second guessing his play on the bench. And Chris ripped the iPad out of his hand and threw it away because he didn't want him to second guess anything that he had done. And it's called the CridePad incident, which is just so amazing that I'm just ultra excited by this. And this is exactly one of the things that I love about female hockey fans. And to be honest, I'm not positive that you are female. You might not be. That's fine.
I don't get a sense that they are, but I don't know.
I definitely got the sense that, I'm just going to go out on a limb here, the fan fiction and the narrative that's been created around Zibanejad it's extremely like personal, and it's really beautiful and very romantic. Very romantic. I have a quote that I pulled for this occasion to demonstrate how romantic it is. And I'm going to read this to you. And this is an excerpt from a story on Archive of Our Own called We Were Always Inevitable. And it is written by someone who goes by the handle NYR fan _ just passing through. Thank you to NYR fan just passing through. And I'm going to read this. I'll do my best to present this in some kind of romantic way, but I think it's really beautiful. Something about the stare or the silence, or just Micah's utter lack of response must be what finally puts the crack in Chris's stoic, composed exterior. Because the next thing Micah knows, all pretense of that no-nonsense front is gone. Chris's expression is softer, his voice softer. I'm sorry, he reiterates, swallowing hard. I tried not to say stuff like that. I know you don't want me to. His voice wobbles, and Micah is pretty sure he can see his eyes starting to grow shiny. I just You're amazing, Chris continues. And they can't just say that shit. I mean, his voice falters and then he takes a breath, shooting Micah a watery smile. I love you. I'm in love with you. I mean, come on. It's so I shed a tear.
We need to act these out one time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If anybody enjoyed that, please tweet, because I will this will become a regular, if I have anything to do with this will become a regular part of this podcast.
I know. Yeah. We'll be drinking our pairings and reading fan fiction while trying to find me a boyfriend all at the same time. Swipe.
I mean, this is the recipe for recruiting dates, I think, right? But does it not remind you of Twilight, or does it just remind me of Twilight? Reading the books? No,
it's totally Twilight. It's 1000% Twilight. Absolutely. Yes. And I have to be honest, I had to pick a very specific excerpt from that story that wasn't completely graphic, because it gets really good. It gets really good.
It's hot, like an old Anne Rice novel, you know?
Yes.
Ooh, love Anne Rice.
Yeah. So sure, we will talk about who's going to be MVP, and we will do all of that. But please know, if you're coming to this podcast, you're going to get a little bit of everything.
As you should.
We'll also grow the female demo that we're looking to do.
Absolutely.
Hey, we're working on that. You know, I will say, when I was in New York, I was trying to talk to a lot of women about what we were doing. And the way I approach it is like, hey, we're new at doing this. We're growing it. You're here in New Jersey. You're here at this local bar. You're supporting your team. Probably have season tickets. You're at these games. We want your input. We're not just three people doing a podcast. I mean, I think we said before, we're trying to grow a community. But also, what I like to tell people too is this is a great learning experience. Let's go back to doing that podcast with the guys last week. It was great, because listening to them now as I'm spending more time is so much better than reading posts on Facebook stuff. It's kind of listening to the perspective of these guys and the way they think. Guys think differently than women do. We love the sport as much. A lot of people were armchair kind of, fans. I have not skated on ice and played on a hockey team. I've not played for the NHL, AHL, or any kind of youth hockey either, but we're fans. So it's fun to kind of learn and grow with other people, as we kind of listen and meet up with people. I did like their perspective on things. I do like what they say, and even kind of going into some of the other podcasts that listen to me, with the questions that were coming in from people were good. I call it fun school. I guess I do some of my other hobbies. I'm loving this already, and we're
absolutely. There's some great New York Rangers podcasts out there. I listen to Locked On Sports almost every day. The New York Rangers podcast is really good. So yeah, I mean, if anybody else has any recommendations too, we are all ears for who else to tune into. And we do have a different perspective. I'll be honest. I think women tend to look at the game more holistically. And I sometimes wonder, if we were coaching, we'd be making very different decisions based on that. And is that a good thing or not a good thing? I mean, I could almost make a case for having more women on the bench looking at teams, because I think that from a female perspective, you kind of see the same things in a slightly different way.
Yeah, you go, Sarah. The great thing about Sarah, you're watching the other games. I'm so focused on trying to even, because we're going to keep going back to conversations about how to watch the game. Because one of the best parts is, I think, was it last Thursday when actually the one channel I do have, that they put it on Hulu and ESPN, and everybody exploded. Like, why am I paying for MSG and I can't watch it? I'm like, my response to everybody on boards was, welcome to my world. No tears shed. We all have to learn to live with it and to figure it out. So, but you're actually watching other games, and that's good. I like the perspective you're going to even bring, not only from like the sport, but even from like what other people are doing. Now that I have that channel, Game Center, so now I'll kind of start watching some of the other games when I can, and seeing all the news going around.
Oh,
did we just lose Christine?
She just left.
I'm sure she'll come back on.
Watching the other games, it's like probably my favorite part. I'm always somebody who likes to know what's going on in the big picture. I'm not always drilled down to one thing. I've been like that my entire life, if you will. I love watching sports, but I also like to know what's happening in the league. And I think one of our biggest strengths, being fans of our teams, and we're not in the cities where their home base is, I think that's a huge advantage for us, having a podcast and being transplants, and another appreciation at a level that I think a lot of them can't relate to. Every day I'm paying attention to what's going on in the league. We could talk about Kachuk's forced suspension in 7 years, which was something that was trending this morning. We could talk about how Pittsburgh is also shitting the bed like New York, but it's just that time in the season where The good teams tend to do that. They're just making all their mistakes and they're going to learn from them right now. It's not January. It's not after All-Stars where they're having issues. They're doing it right now. And while it's frustrating to watch, it's an okay thing because they're going to get it together pretty quick.
What's the narrative going on in Canada right now? Because I've heard a couple of things about what's happening in Canadian hockey.
Hockey Canada, not great. I'll give you the Coles notes. They essentially got caught for having a slush fund to deal with unfortunate events like sexual assault, things of that nature. And I think halfway through that trial, it was discovered they had a second slush fund, all the while pressuring the board of directors and the head guy to step down. It took forever for that to happen, but finally they did. Oddly enough, they're all based in Alberta as well. And they were saying mid-October, all these groups across the country, like the youth hockey, it was up to them to not be a part of that. So it kind of went by region to decide. And the last I heard, Alberta hadn't separated. I'm sure they did. It's not a look anybody wants. That's why we are seeing in our day-to-day news outlets are going for good hockey stories here. They want to talk about good things happening. Just tonight, before we started this, the town where I went to high school is hosting Hockey Day in Canada in January. There's a whole bunch of programming happening around that. So I think we're going to start to see in Canada more of those good hockey events happening outside of Hockey Canada. It's quite important. You will see, if you're watching the audiences of the hockey games, not a lot of people are wearing Team Canada stuff right now because that's affiliated with it. It's unfortunate, but it's a time to regroup and find a new way. And there's a lot of advocacy for having a lot more females and diverse representation on that board. So hopefully that's what we come out of it with. And they definitely need some feel-good publicity to kind of steer the ship when they're ready. But I just wanted to comment too on having female coaches in the game that Christine was talking about. Jim Rutherford on the Canucks organization, who went to the Canucks this year from Pittsburgh, largely rumored he left Pittsburgh because he wanted to trade Malkin and nobody else did. He's with the Canucks. They've had a really rough start, but they're kind of coming together here. They got Ethan Bear, I believe, last week in a trade. I want to say Lane Peterson. Anyways, he's been commended for having females in the front office and the top of the organization. So I think we're going to start to see a little more of that. I know there's some, but we need more.
The Kings have, good set of bringing females into their organization too. And they've been pioneers, and like, that's good to hear that it's local here. And a little bit more research we can do to kind of see where some of them lie. We were talking about the other day, was it against Boston I was watching, where, Emily is, the commentator, like between the periods. So she was announcing the concussion that, that was it Kako? No. Oh, Hedel. Yeah. So she announced it was always an upper body injury. Emily's doing the announcing during the intermission, and she's announcing that there's a concussion. So the boards went crazy on that. I haven't seen it, but I guess every team has a woman commentator or announcer.
I actually think from a coaching perspective, women looking at the game will be able to offer a perspective that men might not be able to see. It's like that same thing when like a woman opens the fridge and sees like all the things that you need to still do, all the things that you need to buy for your family, and a man opens the fridge and he's like, oh, there's a soda. Like it's, you look at the same thing and have completely different, and I know I'm generalizing. I don't mean, every man does it. I don't mean every woman does that, but I do think there's a big difference between how each gender looks at a scenario. And I do think that women would offer very unique perspective. And I think the only way to know is, to really start seeing women get up there and men starting to take our opinions a little bit more seriously when it comes to decisions like that. I think what the Canucks are doing is great, and I hope it continues.
Yeah, this will be interesting to follow along and see how this grows and what kind of continues throughout the season and where it ends up. To my future boyfriends, wherever you may be, I'm going to find you.
Well, cheers to that.
Hopefully this season.
Well, cheers to that, ladies. Thank you so much for your
Yay.
time. Thank you to everybody who's listening. Please stay in touch.
Yes.
Drink
Drink up, enjoy everything, and just relax.